Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure and the privilege to moderate this timely panel with prominent speakers entitled Circular Economy, the Economic Model to Ensure the Energy Transition and Carbon Neutrality. Two of our prominent speakers are physically present, while two others are connected online. I would like to share with you some general considerations and, of course, inform you about the process. I would like the speakers to take the floor for 4 or 5 minutes, followed by a question that I will address to them. And at the end, if time is left, we will have the possibility to go for a very short second round. Circular economy is the new economic model, the model which will ensure that our planet will be saved, as if we continue with the current linear economy patterns, we will need, according to scientific evidence, 2 planets by 2040 and 3 planets by 2050, while our target is by 2050 to ensure carbon neutrality, that is to say, to minimize and to eliminate all the gases and emissions which have created this climate crisis phenomenon, which is the new evidence and from which we are all suffering. Therefore, the causal link between circular economy as the vehicle to boost the energy transition and to ensure carbon neutrality, which is the ambitious goal of the European Union, but a goal that is also shared by the United States of America. And we are very happy that the new administration not only shares the target not to increase the temperature by more than 1.5%, but also to ensure climate neutrality by 2050, and for this to promote circular economy as the new economic model, circular economy that applies not only vertically but horizontally too, from the European, the global level, according to the Think Globally, Act Locally, to the national level, to the regional level, to the municipality level, in developing a new concept, not the one of the smart city, but the one of the circular city, to the level of the companies. And here we will be promoting circular entrepreneurship, and 1 or 2 of our distinguished speakers will refer to it in more detail, and of course to a new circular economy culture, which will enable us all to reduce our footprint, the climate, the environmental, and our energy footprint as citizens, as households, as part of the groups to which belong, as citizens of the planet where the environment has no border. Without ado, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, who is Emmanuelle Maire from Brussels. She is the head of unit in the Directorate General for the Environment of the European Commission, in charge of circular economy. I could say the most trendy and the most important, in my opinion, Directorate and unit in DG Environment. Emmanuelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Georges, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is really a pleasure for me to be with you, even if this is remotely from Brussels, to speak indeed about circular economy and the need to move away from linear economic model where we produce, consume, and throw away. This is a big priority for us Europeans in the context of the European Green Deal. And I will try to explain a little bit the European Green Deal. So this is the strategy that was adopted in December 2019 by the new European Commission of Ursula von der Leyen. It has several leaves, as you can see, and one of it is to make sure that we mobilize industry, but also citizens towards a clean and circular economy. Today, we are relying, Georges told it very eloquently, too much on virgin resources. The European economy is using 88% of virgin resources, and we are not using the opportunity of using recycled materials in the economy. So it's only 12%, so we can do certainly much more on this as a goal to reach carbon neutrality by 2050 and reducing the material footprint of our economy. So back in March 2020, we presented an overall strategy for circular economy to the 27 member states of the European Union and also to the European Parliament, who really embraced the strategy and support it very strongly. The idea is to propose 35 actions until 2025 that focus always on waste management. That remains a very important part of our actions, but that has a greater focus on the way Europe consumes and produces. And so in that context, we have been mobilizing the EU recovery funds made available for all countries of the European Union to mobilize states, regions, cities to become more circular. We identify in this circular economy action plan different value chains that would benefit from greater circularity, like, for example, electronics and ICT, batteries and vehicles, packaging, plastics, textiles, construction and buildings, food, water, and nutrients. So as you can see, this is really closely connected to our daily lives and also the economy. So we want to promote circular economy to boost the competitiveness of our companies. So far, we have made already a number of legislative proposals in addition to mobilizing funding for projects. So in terms of legal proposals, we have issued a new regulatory framework for batteries in December 2020. We have launched with like-minded partners a global alliance on circular economy and resource efficiency in February 2021. And we have also very recently issued a proposal on new EU rules for waste shipments. The idea being that we keep waste within Europe, we facilitate the movement of waste within Europe to be treated and become secondary resources within Europe, and we limit the export of health and environmental challenges abroad. So these proposals, together with a proposal on persistent organic pollutants that can have an impact in waste streams, are now being discussed by member states and by the European Parliament, and they will ultimately become EU laws. What to expect next? In the coming months, we are working on making proposals on sustainable products. We have already in the European Union an eco-design directive that allows to prevent the placing on the market of energy-related products which are not energy efficient. And we would like to expand the scope of this eco-design directive to more products and to cover more environmental impacts than energy efficiency in use. We are also working on proposals to empower consumers in the green transition and on green claims, because there is obviously an appetite from businesses to claim the benefits of their products but sometimes it's very difficult to know exactly what is claimed and what is exactly substantiated. So it's not necessarily good for internal competition in the European Union market, but also in relation to the consumers. We will be also working on textiles and electronics because, as I told you, they are extremely valuable chains which would benefit from greater circularity. So for us, circular economy is a prerequisite for climate neutrality because 50% of the total greenhouse gas emissions come from resource extraction and processing. So this is why it is so important. We want to really use the opportunity of sharing that model at global level. I told you about the global circular economy, which was launched with key countries and international organizations at the beginning of this year. And we are also aiming at kickstarting negotiations on a global agreement on plastics at the United Nations Assembly next year, and to promote it in our bilateral relations together with NGOs, businesses, as really a model to follow. We also have a stakeholder engagement platform where everybody in Europe is sharing best practices or asking questions about how they can develop business models which are circular. It's also open to regional, local authorities. So do not hesitate to post best practices or to join us. We organize also a lot of events on this platform. And we remain connected when you want to keep in touch with us. With this, I would like to thank you for the possibility to introduce what we do at European Union level on circular economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emmanuelle, for this very comprehensive presentation that will be shared with all those that are following our event and uploaded on the site. As this event is organized by the American Hellenic Chamber, I have a question for you, which might require a long reply, but I would like your reply to be as short as possible. And the question is the following: how can we promote the cooperation between the United States of America and the European Union, both key players now leading this climate neutrality process in terms of more action and in terms of promoting also circular entrepreneurship?
Thank you. Indeed, I think we have really now a great opportunity to cooperate. So European businesses, American businesses, governments on circular economy. There was an EU-US summit back in June, where the importance of climate neutrality, resource efficiency, and circular economy were highlighted by the European Union and the United States. And we have seen in November in the United States a lot of activities which are very promising for us. I mean, first of all, the willingness to engage on tackling plastic and working jointly on a global plastics agreement. So this was a major announcement. But we have seen also the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States issuing the national recycling strategy for the United States and entitling it Building a Circular Economy for All. So we think that the time is ripe to share all the experience which businesses, NGOs, governments have to work jointly on circular economy.
Thank you very much, Emmanuelle. This is very promising. And for your information, I would like to let you know that the Circular Economy Committee of the Greek American Chamber, together with the chambers of Eastern Mediterranean, is willing to promote a project for litter-free Eastern Mediterranean. This is an ambitious project. As we know, plastic has invaded our seas. We have microplastics also in the food chain. And of course, without wanting to say more at this stage as time is flying, we count on your support in the future. We will let you know about this project, and we would like the European Commission to be involved in this. Thank you very much for your participation. Please stay with us for the remaining time. And without ado, I would like now to give the floor to the next speaker, Olivier Jean, who is a partner of Deloitte Central Europe, sustainability leader from Paris, and who will share with us best practices from his own experience and from the experience of Deloitte. Please stick to the 5 minutes that were allocated, as we need to have also a second round amongst us. The floor is yours, Olivier.
Thank you, George, and thanks again for having me this afternoon. I would like to share with you some recent examples on the business case of circular economy. Because in fact, the circular economy principles are not new, even if the concept, as we now understand it, has crystallized only a few years ago and has since gained momentum, especially in Europe. But until recently, circular economy was often associated to, limited experiments, proof of concept types of initiatives, which were not always able to scale commercially, simply because the business case, economically speaking, was not there. But what is new today is that some of those circular economy concepts are finally gaining momentum because the economic model is increasingly confirmed across a wide range of initiatives. And I'll give you a few examples. And this has been made possible by a combination of changes in regulations, but importantly also consumer expectations and behavior, and then operating models from companies and new technologies. So to take a few examples, the first one is from the recycling economy that we've already mentioned, which is obviously one of the historical foundations of the circular economy. Historically, recycled material would be sold to final users with a discount compared to virgin material, just because the quality was a bit lower or perceived as lower compared to the virgin material. However, for the first time, about 18 months ago, the prices in Europe and also in the US for one specific material, which is the polymer, which is used both for beverage bottles and synthetic textile, went above the prices of virgin material, and we've seen that situation maintained since. The reason is simple. Because of the stakeholder pressure around the plastic issue, a lot of the consumer brands, especially the most visible of them, had to take very ambitious commitments to use increasing volumes of recycled material in their products to demonstrate that they're fully supporting the circular economy. And the result is that the demand for recycled material has grown extremely strongly. And now those companies have to pay a price premium compared to the virgin material, which is a polymer called PET. And the winners have been, of course, the recyclers, but also some of those brands which had invested for some years already in long-term relationships with their suppliers of recycled material, and also some brands who had directly invested in some recycling facilities and which can benefit from an economic advantage compared to all the newcomers on the recycling area. Another example is a French designer and manufacturer of domestic appliances called SEB. A few years ago, they announced that all their products would be repairable during 10 years after selling the very last unit. of a specific product range. And, they said that even internally, there had been some debates because, there was obviously a chance that by improving the lifetime of the products, they would reduce some of their sales of the same products. But ultimately, the conclusion has been that this announcement has been extremely beneficial for their brand image and that the sales have increased beyond the potential losses because the lifetime of the product had been extended. And the last example, and there are many even some examples, is the development of circular economy offers in many retail circuits. It started to develop, for example, around food products which safe consumption date was getting close to the limit, which would be offered in some specific corners with a discount. But now you see an increasing number of retail stores, whether clothing stores or electrical and electronic apparel stores, who will have second-hand corners, which are extremely successful. And again, another example taken from France, where we have a platform of second-hand fashion products, which is now a unicorn, which means valued more than 1 billion euros, and which is a platform of second-hand apparel which people can sell and buy from. So just a few examples, but really to demonstrate that now for the first time, we really see a lot of successful economic examples of circular economy. And obviously, this is extremely good news for our sustainability and climate ambitions.
Thank you very much, Olivier, for sharing with us your experiences on the ground with the companies that you are managing as regards circular economy and recycling experiences. And I would dare to say that some kind of recycling stock exchange, I put this in inverted commas, is developing. And of course, listening to you, I was thinking to the industrial symbiosis and to the need to develop a data base. This is something that we are promoting also with the Circular Economy Committee of the American Hellenic Chamber as good practices. I have a short question to you. You have said, you have referred to the second-hand market, which is in reality the reuse concept before disposing, and which is very important. There are occasionally needs to use something for one time. For example, to repair something in your apartment, etc. What about this market? Would you see some kind of leasing that, for example, has been developed as regards the winter tires and the summer tires of some cars, or the possibility, for example, to rent for 1 month a given product and give it back afterwards instead of buying it and having it as a potential waste in your own, let's say, storage place, please?
No, this is definitely another good example of real-life circular economy initiatives, which is probably easily put in place in large cities. But in many capital cities now, you can see, for example, the possibility, as you said, to repair something in your home, to rent very specific equipment just for a couple of days. You can, with some retailers, even rent a specific cooking equipment for the weekend because you want to prepare a special dish for your friends. So we definitely see those initiatives also developing as another very concrete experience of what circular economy means and can bring in terms of benefit, because as you said, you don't have to buy something you will only use a few times, but maximize the use of the equipment for a greater number of people.
Thank you very much, Olivier. Indeed, there are very interesting prospects, and of course, a new circular economy culture in the households and in our daily life that is developing. I would like now to give the floor to the third speaker, physically present. I have the pleasure to have her in front of me, Ms. Kiara Konti, Associate Partner, Climate Change and Sustainability Services of Ernst Young. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Kremlis. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'll focus on the business side, so I'll try to explain and clarify a bit the concepts around sustainability, the circular economy, and climate change, and how these link together. And one thing we see from the market is that the greatest challenge is understanding the business case in order to adjust and implement sustainability strategies or circular economy strategies in the business model. So in order to clarify that, I think it's very important to go back to the actual business model, understand the basic concepts around that. So we have the business model at the center, which includes the governance structure, the strategy, risk and opportunity assessment, and obviously the main business activities. But before that, we have a series of inputs, which are both financial and non-financial. So for example, natural capital, social capital, human capital, etc. And on the other hand of the business model, we have the outputs. So we have the actual products or services that the business model creates and some externalities. So if we take this into a very simple example, let's say around energy and climate, we'll see that energy is actually an input that is needed for the business model to work, for business activities to take place. So if we think about a manufacturing company, they need energy to operate, and then they produce their products. But at the same time, these products also, this production process also creates some externalities. So they produce greenhouse gas emissions from their operations. Now, this is an output. So the product is the output, the greenhouse gas emissions are the externalities. The impact, which is another, let's say, column in this visual, is climate in this case. So these emissions affect the impact area of climate. It's the exact same thing if we think of the same product needing as inputs natural resources and raw materials, and producing through the business activities the output, which is again the product, but also externalities that have to do with waste or byproducts in the business activity. And then the impact, again, goes to many, many impact areas if we stick to the environmental framework. So it affects both the climate, air, possibly soil, water, biodiversity, etc. So where does the circular economy comes into play in all this concept? It's not an input, it's not an output, it's not an outcome, it's basically a business model. So in the same exact sense that it's an economic model that has to do with the entire value chain of that product, in the same sense, it's an actual need for the adjustment of the current, let's say, business model of that company to make sure that the inputs that they will use come from not finite or scarce resources, but from renewable resources, that the production and activities that take place within the business model use less energy, again, less natural capital. And also the way that this product is designed is meant to stay in the economy longer. So the three basic principles of the circular economy are intertwined, in essence, with climate change and other sustainability challenges. So if we take the first principle, for example, that says that during and inside a circular economy model, you actually need to preserve and restore natural capital. This means using renewable energy sources. So if we stick to climate, this means renewable energy. The second principle has to do with keeping materials, products, and components within the economy as long as possible. And there is a very important third principle that is very often neglected, that has to do with minimizing and ideally eliminating externalities, which is greenhouse gas emissions also, apart from waste. So if we take all of that together and think of it as an actual model, a business model that addresses a series of impacts around the environment, and not only the environment, but also socioeconomic type of impacts, This is the key to understanding that in order to apply, you need to really adjust the way you operate as a company. And this goes, again, through the entire value chain. So how this product creates these impacts within the economy throughout its life cycle. So this is where different business models come into play, like industrial symbiosis that you mentioned, like sharing platforms, reusing products, remanufacturing products within the economy. So it goes around the circle, and it really needs to start from the actual business model within the companies themselves.
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting analysis of circular entrepreneurship. Listening to you, I was thinking of a circular chain where all the links have circularity elements and need to complement each other in terms of raw materials used, energy, green energy, outputs, etc., etc. When I was with the European Commission, we were talking about the full life cycle analysis from cradle to grave, but there is no grave now, because the grave becomes a cradle again. This is the circular economy. So indeed, this is a very interesting approach. And I would like to ask you a question. In reality, you have referred also to circularity indicators. So what is your opinion about this, and how realistic is this sectoral-wise, product-wise, services-wise to be developed? I know that the European Commission is referring to this, but from your own experience from the private sector.
Again, this goes into many levels. So if we start with the business level, as any business model, you need key performance indicators to measure your performance. But I think at this point in time, given that circular economy extends to the whole economy, it's really important for the successfulness of the actual strategy that we have, the national strategy on the circular economy, and at the same time for the new climate law to be successful, to have a system to monitor progress. So at this point in time, Greece is falling behind Europe on circular economy indicators across many areas. There are many reasons for that. One of them being that we don't capture the data that we have to, both on a national level, but also on a business level. Another thing is that some of these, let's say, plans that we have, both at national level and business level, are not based on specific targets. So if you don't have a target and a KPI, you cannot actually monitor your progress. So in order to reach, for the majority of the indicators that that Eurostat actually monitors, in order as Greece to reach a better state, we need to really build a system around that. So there has been some preparatory work. We're supporting SEV, the Business Council for Sustainable Development, to create a list of an observatory, in essence, for monitoring this type of indicators at a national level. And it's also very important to do so on a business level as well. That has to do, again, these indicators have to do with inputs, outputs, and outcomes.
Well, thank you very much for your reply, Kiara. I would like now to give the floor to the last speaker, Mr. George Pechlivanoglou, who is the Vice President of the Eunice Group, Energy Group, a pioneering group in Greece promoting renewables and also IT, digital economy in relation to renewables. The floor is yours, Mr. Pechlivanoglou. He is physically present, so I have the pleasure to welcome him on the panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kremlis. Thank you very much for the great invitation to be able to communicate our points with respect to ESG and the effect of introducing circular economy concepts in various different businesses and business models. So I would like to start a little bit this discussion with a few points on my presentation regarding the actions of Eunice as a company who tries to pioneer this type of concept in Greece for the last 20 years, and also a way of thinking that the companies could introduce in order to integrate such concepts in their daily business. So just a very quick overview of the basic criteria for a circular economy. This is important for every company to remember that ESG and circular economy criteria are not only characteristics of procedures and processes of operation, but they also affect the way we do the entire business and the way we design and produce products. It is important to keep in mind that procurement is a key part of our activity as companies, and companies should introduce circular and green procurement in their procedures, and also they should start think very analytically about the way they design and produce products. It was mentioned before, but I would like to briefly point out a few interesting points when we consider the way we do business. So this is a brief overview of the activities of Eunice, and in terms of manufacturing and in terms of doing the entire chain of operations. I would like to focus on one single thing. We are speaking a lot about e-mobility lately, and we set up huge networks of EV chargers, and we introduce electric vehicles and all that. We would like to remind everyone that the point of introducing e-mobility is in the direction of circular economy and green transition, which means we should consider that all the products in this value chain, from EV chargers, vehicles, and all the businesses around them, should adhere to these type of principles. A very interesting example is that of the EV chargers. So if we analyze the market today, we'll see that the big majority of these products are consumer electronics with no repairability introduced in the design, and with very short lifetime. So that, of course, goes against the basic principle of circular economy. So when we had the strategic decision of producing this type of product, the EV chargers that we produce here in Greece, this was one of the key indicators that we needed to keep in mind and to tackle with our design. And that's why we introduced EV chargers with a design lifetime more than 20 years, full repairability, full upgradability, and also the ability to recycle the largest percentage of their components. Now, this is definitely not something which is a global innovation, but this is something that we have to all keep in mind in order to produce products throughout the value chain that adhere to these circular economy concepts. And we also should not forget what was briefly mentioned before, that there's also an issue with respect to the energy that our production facilities and production units are consuming. It is very important that, especially actively producing and actively value-generating organizations consume 100% green energy in order to create a complete image and a complete picture of their position in terms of ESG and circular economy. So with that in mind, we have to always keep in the back of our heads and introduce in our business models all those different aspects that have to be taken into account outside of the general description of our procedures and processes, in order to really fulfill this transition and go towards satisfying the ESG criteria. And just concluding very briefly, I would like to mention that for every single product and for every single activity and service, we have to really break down every single one of those criteria and try to apply a score in order to eventually create a scoring system for the products that will allow companies to procure in products that adhere to those circular economy criteria. And most of all, we should I believe, very soon introduce this type of criteria also in public tenders, especially when public tenders adhere to different types of procurement methods. We have to keep in mind that it's not anymore a matter of the cheapest product in a tender. It's a matter of a combination of cost effectiveness and environmental efficiency. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pechlivanoglou, for this to-the-point presentation, short and accurate. I have invented a new term, which I believe is accurate. We are talking about ESG. I would add in front of ESG, CESG, Circular, Environmental and Social Governance. Because I remember at the time we had CSR, it was promoted to ESG, and now we need to talk about CESG because circular entrepreneurship, and Ms. Konti has referred to it, and Mr. Pechlivanoglou as well, is the new concept that we all need to promote. There is some time left. I'm happy about it. So what I would like to stress is what also Mr. Pechlivanoglou has referred to, green public procurement. It is very important to have circularity criteria and climate resilience criteria in the tendering process from now on. In Greece, we have, and I will let you know very briefly because this is important for our foreign speakers, although Emmanuelle follows closely what is happening in Greece. We have now a circular economy strategy. We have a circular economy action plan, which encompasses also the second action plan on circular economy of the European Union. It is even updated, promoting a holistic approach. We have a draft law on climate, which is very important with ambitious targets. We have the 2030 target of reducing by 55%. We have the 2050 target to achieve carbon neutrality. We have the 2040 Greek target to reduce by 80%. Hopefully we will have it soon at the European level. We are following Fit for 55, which is important, but we have also introduced elements which will boost the energy transition. We have a program Ex Economo, which means I make economies to improve energy efficiency in the buildings, private buildings. It will be expanded to public buildings. It will be expanded to the hotels as well. We have promoted electromobility, electric chargers. The group of Mr. Pechlivanoglou is pioneering also in this sector. And of course, we are promoting other concepts. And one of them on which I know that the Eunice group has worked a lot is the so-called prosumer concept, from producer and consumer. How can we satisfy our needs at the household level, at the company level, at the municipality level? So I would like Mr. Pechlivanoglou, and this is the question to him after a long introduction on my side, to briefly explain how this prosumer concept, which I believe will boost energy transition, because we need to produce our own energy. We cannot rely on gas as a transition fuel, waiting for hydrogen to be developed. It's coming. And I can tell you that in the Greek climate law and in the RRP, the Recovery and Resilience Plan, we have strong references to pilot projects on hydrogen that hopefully will be promoted. But I do believe that energy efficiency on the one hand and the prosumer concept can boost the energy transition and help us in ensuring in achieving carbon neutrality? Please.
Yes, thank you very much for this very targeted question. I think this is very much the need for the immediate future. So we have coined a little bit this modified expression, which we call net prosumer. We believe that for the first time, everyone, every single person can be a producer, a consumer, and a part of the network. And this opens up infinite possibilities. So starting, I would say that, especially with current energy prices, there's no real reason why every single household would not be self-sufficient. We're able, with a mix of renewables, the simplest one would be solar and in the combination of storage, to have self-sufficiency, at least in the level of household. This, of course, does not mean that we do not connect to the electricity grids. It just means that we relieve the load of the electricity grids, and we also increase the penetration of renewables directly at the point of consumption. As a second step, what we do is we relieve capacity from those distributed grids, because if we want to integrate extremely spread out EV charging infrastructure, we have to allow for capacity on the grid to be free so that we can charge our vehicles. And what's better to charge our vehicle if we can unload the system by providing our own energy for our homes. So first point would be reducing cost, increasing penetration of renewables. Second point would be relieving the grid. And the third and very important point is that we completely flip the business model of energy on its back. We don't have to have the single way of transferring money from the central production to the consumers in terms of energy, and from the consumers to the central production in terms of money. We can now all contribute in this big market of energy and energy services. And the technology is here. We have implemented this successfully in many, many installations. We expand it even further, also in different countries. And I think this is really the time to introduce and embrace this new concept.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pechlivanoglou. Unfortunately, I see that the time left is really very limited, but I would like to ask Emmanuelle, I know that this is a shared responsibility with DG Energy, and we all know that clean energy for Europeans was an ambitious, let's say, initiative developed by both DG Energy and DG Environment. How would you see a legal framework to support this net prosumer idea? And another point that you can take with you, we have now the old first generation solar panels that have ended their life cycle. We have also old wind turbines, and we have also the ship dismantling. And you know, we are sending, and Greece has a very strong interest on that, as we are the first power worldwide. We are sending our ships to be dismantled in Asia, and some of them are sent to Turkey. So these are really issues on which the third circular economy action plan can look into it. So please take this with you in Brussels. But if you can react very briefly on the net prosumer concept, which I believe is a very interesting one.
Yes, no, I was really listening carefully, and I think that it really echoes what the European Commission also explained in terms of clean energy and clean energy strategy earlier this year. So I found a lot of commonalities on what you say. I mean, we see that our energy needs will increase, that the grid is very sensitive, that we need to adapt it, but we also need to maybe have our own supplies as much as possible, and consume for ourselves and produce maybe for others. So if you have the technology for that, for me, it really is in adequation to what has been proposed earlier in promoting clean energy. And the energy prices, which are soaring, is also an additional incentive towards that. So if you have your own sources of clean energy, you don't depend on the high prices related to gas prices as well. So I think if you have the technology, if the regulation allows for that, and then it's really a mix of local, national, and European regulation, then it should be achievable. Also, on the question of the solar panels, it's true that we have different generations of solar panel, and we see that the production is expanding. What we are trying to do now with colleagues is to have an EU eco-design framework for solar panel that lasts, so that you know when you buy your solar panels, what is the durability, the repairability of these products, and you invest in long-lasting products. Also, I see a lot of interest from businesses in wind turbines, also in the dismantling in wind turbines, and how to store them, to recycle them. So the life cycle aspects of the turbines are becoming ever more important, which is part of our energy transition. On ship dismantling, George, you know, we have a European Union framework on this. We make sure that there are also certain conditions that are applied for ship dismantling, and we don't do this in any condition.
Yeah,
so there again,
I know that ship dismantling is very polluting, but we need to think about it and possibly develop best practices with the view to keeping the precious materials that we have on ships within the European Union. We have 1 minute, 18 seconds left. So I would like, Olivier, you have 15 seconds, and then the two other speakers as well, just for a key message from this interesting panel.
Yeah, I think the key message for me would be really that the economic business case for circular economy is now open for good ideas and initiative, and companies should really invest now.
Indeed, this is the momentum, the right moment. Kiara.
Very quickly, to make sure that we combine our strategies and plans around climate change and circularity as much as possible, because it's a common problem that we need a common business model to resolve.
Yes, and I think this is the communication tool, because if our citizens understand that our climate, our planet is threatened, they will do more to boost the circular economy and to behave as circular citizens. George.
So I believe that we can sum this up saying that the green transition is a transition not only of economies and technologies, it's a transition that changes our lives and the lives of every single person, and not only companies, not only states.
Indeed, a new culture has to be promoted. I would like to thank very much the four speakers, those who have followed, attended our hybrid event, and I'm looking forward to our next meetings. I'm very happy that the European Commission is looking into all these key issues to which we have referred, and I wish you all the best in your circular economy lives. Thank you.